There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Listen to that music. Let that music settle into your eardrums. Let it take you back to a good time, a good place. Shout out to Jose Cancela, the composer of the music for 24/7. That's what you're listening to right here. Jose Cancela. Every time this music would play, you knew something special was going to happen. It was iconic. I mean, listen to the beat. I mean, everything about it. It just, if you don't hear this and think of Floyd Mayweather and HBO's 24/7, then maybe you've never seen those shows. But there you go. I'm going to let this bump until it's done. Probably another 30 seconds or so. But again, shout out to Jose Cancela, the composer. Hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. This is not my music. This is his. Jose, I hope I get your blessing as a former HBO guy to use this. But it's iconic, and I'm going to take it out now. So the music is iconic, and it's iconic for a reason, because it's associated with 24/7. What was 24/7? 24/7 was an all-access show. It was first done for the Oscar De La Hoya Floyd Mayweather fight. I was humbled enough to work on the first two shows. The second one was Mayweather Hatton. And it was unlike anything that had ever been done. And it's sorely missed. And that first one, man, I mean, to me, those first two 24/7s were the best, bar none. There were 4 episode shows, and they were great. The reason why I'm doing this show, and this is a personal thing to me. Last night, first of all, let me set this up. I was a producer at HBO. I was with HBO for 15 years and was a producer for much of that time. Got to tell fighter stories, traveled the world, and it was a dream job. When I left HBO, I'm still in the game. I'm still a storyteller. Producer is a storyteller. I'm a storyteller, and I've worked some all-access shows. I've worked, ESPN does a show called Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which is a fantastic show. So there are still good shows out there, and this is all subjective. I might like something and you might not like it. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But last night, I watched DAZN's shoulder programming show called 40 Days for Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. And I just want to say that I was not impressed. And some people may love it. I did not. We in the boxing game and boxing fans have followed the saga with Ryan Garcia, who seems like he's out of his mind, does not seem like he's ready to fight. That being said, they did not touch on that at all in that show. And I think there's 2 more shows. Now, I know how the inner workings are with production. So DAZN might have told them, guys, we have to stay away from this. Stay away from Ryan's behavior, which I think is a bad thing. He did it. You might as well lean into it. Last night, the episode could have been epic. It could have been iconic. It fell short on many levels. And that just inspired me to talk today early at 2:00 about storytelling in boxing. And is it important? Do people care about it? Tech Dumb Dad says, actually, let me go back to his first. So Tech Dumb Dad says, the production value, in my humble opinion, is not as good as it used to be. No way. Seems to be almost a forgotten art, and it is so important to the market of boxing. It is. Now, remember, All Access, which Amazon Prime just did a show, and it was basically the All Access team. I know a lot of those people over there. They are excellent over there. They do a great show. They've kept it going, what 24/7 started. But I think that not enough shoulder programming is done. Tech Dumb Dad, I think the main culprit is social media and shorter attention spans, and the casual fan base doesn't pay attention to anything but Fight Night now. You know, You might be right. I'm going to disagree because as bad as I thought 40 Days was, I went on Real Devin Haney TV. A couple friends of mine said you should check this out. They're also doing they did a 4-part show leading up to the fight. It might be more. I've only seen the first 2. And it was excellent. Real Devin Haney TV. It was you had behind the scenes access. It was so far superior to what DAZN did, and DAZN probably spent a lot more money than Devin Haney did with his production team. So I've seen 2 episodes. So go to Real Devin Haney TV, check those out, because the thing about 24/7, it was supposed to be access 24/7, 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. And it was supposed to be real inside access. And that's what it was. And that's what you're getting with Real Devin Haney TV. They had some bits from the press conference with Ryan and drugs and the allegations. So I can't wait to see the other 2 episodes. But they're doing what 40 Days did not do. They're doing what 40 Days did not do. It did not get personal. 40 Days was a very cookie cutter type of show. And I'm not knocking it. It is what it is. If you take any fight, give me 2 fighters, give me 10 minutes with each guy for a sit-down interview, give me whatever press conference they did, and give me access to fight footage, and I'll get you a show that's going to be entertaining, and it's good. Does it have any insight? No. But it's entertaining. You'll see highlights, and you'll hear the guys talk about what they're going to do in the fight. I just thought that it fell below the mark. So going back to your quote here, casual fan base doesn't pay attention. On Real Devin Haney TV, they're getting a lot of views. And really my question is, cookie cutter to me, yes. Indeed, it was cookie cutter. Blood, Sweat, and Tears is the best one going for sure. I agree with that as well. Not because I've worked on some of them, but the people there are top notch, and they know what they're doing. And I wish there were more. What qualities did HBO 24/7 have that haven't been able to be replicated? Well, boxing analysts, I think a lot of the same people work on All Access, and it's really not a brand new concept. When We Were Kings, the doc on Ali and Foreman, that was done back then, although it took 20 years after the fight till they released the movie. But it was inside access. Just imagine the shows they could have done back then. But that's another story. Well, what hasn't been replicated in a lot of places is just the quality of fights. First of all, you need the fight. You need the fight to be able to do this. And look, I don't think you necessarily need a voiceover person, because Real Devin Haney TV doesn't have a narrator. They don't have a narrator. I prefer to not have a narrator. I like the fighters to tell the stories, but come on, HBO had Liev Schreiber. So Liev was the voice of HBO boxing. So he is no longer doing that. Tech Dumb Dead, I think it's the way stories are told now. They are not in depth. Doesn't feel personal. Doesn't seem to connect you to the fighters the way that HBO did. And that's really my point in doing this. That's really my point. Growing up, I boxed briefly, wanted to be a boxer. It didn't work, but I love the sport. And what I love most of all were the stories. No, I take that back. What I love, first of all, were the fights themselves. I was going to watch the fight no matter what. But a good story made me have an interest in a fighter. And it made me want to root for that fighter or against that fighter. And that's what HBO did so well. And then I got to do it for 15 years, traveling all over the world, telling fighter stories. So, yeah, today, I think there is still a need for this, but it's just not there the way it should be. So this is all a reaction. This is all a reaction to, yes, you should go see that. This is all a reaction to the DAZN 40 Days, which there are 2 more episodes, and maybe they'll get better. But I guess, again, I'm going back to the premise of the question. Do people care? Do people care about stories. Yes, it costs money with production. You have to have shooters and editors, and yes, it does cost money. But do people want to see stories? Is there a need for stories? In my opinion, yes, there is. It's funny. I had a prominent person for a network tell me once that boxing stories and features were only a vehicle for guys' wives, so they'll let them watch the fights on Saturday night. So if that's your opinion, that's your opinion. I disagree 1,000%. I think by not having that, you're missing the mark. You're missing the mark by not having a storytelling way of getting the fighters' stories out there and getting people interested. I don't like golf. I don't play golf. I don't watch golf. But I do watch Full Swing on Netflix. I watched the first season. I'm about to start watching the second season. And I did watch a few minutes of a few tournaments after the first one. But what interested me were the stories and the way the stories were told. And it made me watch the show. I felt compelled to watch the show. Now, disclosure, some of the people there during that show are some of the people that I know, friends of mine, who worked on HBO's 24/7. So I like Full Swing, and I don't like golf. I play Top Golf, which is the bomb. I love Top Golf, but I don't play golf. But I will be watching the second season of Full Swing because I think the stories are compelling, and they bring you in. Netflix is spending money on this because people are watching, people are subscribing. Go back to HBO's 24/7. Now, again, people say 24/7 made Floyd Mayweather a star. Well, let's be honest. Floyd Mayweather made 24/7. It was a hand-in-hand thing. 24/7 helped make Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather made 24/7. That's why it became so iconic, because Floyd did the first two with Oscar and then with Ricky Hatton. And like I said, I got to work on both of those. I got to produce some 24/7s as well. The very first 24/7, and I always give a shout out to my man Tim Bradley. My very first 24/7 that I produced was Pacquiao Bradley 1, and I was on the Tim Bradley side. And the way we did it was you had two producers, one for each fighter. So I was with Tim, and a friend of mine was with Manny. So we would be in the camps I was in the camp for maybe a week. We would come home, and then field producers would go out and be in the camp for the rest of the shoot schedule. But yeah, Tim Bradley was my first one, and you can find them on YouTube. But they were I'm biased, but that first Pacquiao Bradley was as good as any 24/7, and the first two are the best in my opinion. But the best 24/7, Margarito-Cotto. I'm sorry, Cotto versus Margarito 2, 24/7. It was only 2 episodes, but it was mind blowing. And that was back in 2011. They fought in December 2011. So the show was shot in 2011. I was in Tamoya, Mexico. I was out there for, I guess, about a week shooting with Margarito. He was being trained by Robert Garcia. And that camp was surprisingly a lot more fun, even with the language barrier, than I thought. Because first of all, Robert Garcia is a great guy. Brandon Rios was out there. J. Leon Love was out there. And those guys are characters, especially Brandon Rios, man. I mean, I can't even say the kind of jokes that he would tell. But yeah, that was a great time. And my show may get stopped here, but I'm going to play one of the features that was shot in Margarito's camp. It was a lead up. It was in the first episode. But let's go back to 2011. Check this out.
1,300 miles west of the Atlantic, high in the mountains of central Mexico, the man who's haunted Cotto for 3 years trains in the town of Tamoya. Here, amid the quiet rhythms of rural life, Antonio Margarito has found an ideal hamlet for fight training.
Sí, venir para acá por lo de la altura. Estamos entrenando y corriendo ahí arriba en la altura. Es la primera vez que vengo para acá. Creo que de aquí para frente va a ser mi campo de entrenamiento.
Margarito trained for his previous 2 fights in Southern California. Now nearly 10,000 feet above sea level, the fighter and his trainer, Robert Garcia, have found a new level of comfort.
Mucho la diferencia totalmente. Totalmente, y la verdad pues me gustó el lugar. Yo miré ahorita la recuperación. Tú ahorita te miré ya y... Ya está, sí, sí. Y se la vamos a bajar a Cotto.
Three years ago, Margarito's victory over Cotto represented the pinnacle of his career. But just 6 months later, in January 2009, his reputation and livelihood were left in shambles when he faced off with Shane Mosley in Los Angeles.
Just minutes ago, an illegal pad was found in Margarito's gloves, something that would harden when wet, and that his hands had to be rewrapped 3 times. Mosley.
I'm muted. Thank you for telling me, Tech Dumb Dad. I appreciate you. What I was saying was I actually worked the Margarito Mosley fight. I did a feature on both guys before the fight. So Shane was training in Big Bear. Margarito was in LA, I believe. And I did work the live fight as well. And I could just remember when we found out in the truck that something was happening with the wraps, and then the rest is history.
Margarito in trouble on the rope. Staggers him with that right hand. He's about one more right hand away from going down. And Shane Mosley has annihilated Antonio Margarito.
The 9th round knockout was only the beginning of Margarito's problems. The California State Athletic Commission confiscated the knuckle pads that had been flagged before the bout by inspectors. Weeks later, both Margarito and his trainer, Javier Capetillo, had their boxing licenses revoked when it was found that the pads contained sulfur and calcium, ingredients that form plaster of Paris. Shortly after the commission's hearing, Margarito severed ties with his trainer, ending a decade-long relationship with the man he says he'd come to look at as a father.
Perdí relación con él y por eso me duele, ¿no? Me duele, pero ya eso lo dejé en el pasado, ya ahorita estoy en el presente y vamos a seguir adelante. Es todo lo que puedo decir yo de él.
In the Azteca Boxing Club in Los Angeles, the man who became a boxing pariah after the Mosley bout still trains fighters, though he's forbidden to work their corners anywhere in the United States. Unlike Margarito, Javier Capetillo has not been able to get his license reinstated, but he continues to deny any malicious wrongdoing in the Mosley bout, insisting he simply arrived in the dressing room late that night and gave Margarito a pair of wraps already sitting on a table without knowing they were tainted.
Yo declaré, yo soy culpable porque yo vendo las manos de Margarito. Y si yo cometí el error de no fijarme, soy culpable. ¿Por qué? Por tonto, por no haberme fijado. Y ni modo, lo pagué y lo estoy pagando. Pero yo siempre diré que aquí estoy presente y que yo no me creo culpable de nada. Y ni creo que Margarito sea culpable de nada.
So there you go. That was an example of storytelling right there. And hopefully my channel doesn't get flagged for that because I obviously don't own that. But that's what we did. That's what we did. And my point was really not to go back to Cotto and Margarito and their rematch and the whole Margarito thing. But we can talk about that too. But that was a 24/7 Again, to me, it was the best 24/7 besides the first two. But that was just storytelling. And we had pictures of those hand wraps. And I did the interview with Margarito and Robert Garcia, and we showed them, and Margarito just pretty much laughed it off. Mosley versus Margarito, Plaster versus Royds. But again, the point of me showing that is I think people do care about storytelling in boxing, and I think there should be more of it. And I'm biased because I'm a storyteller. I'm a producer. Boxing is Mosley versus Margarito, Plaster versus Royds. Maybe. Maybe. Tech Dumb Dad, shameful and pathetic, not to mention dangerous. To put a fighter in danger like that is unforgivable. Shouldn't be allowed near a gym ever again. Zach M, has anyone seen the documentary Assault in the Ring? I did. It was excellent. It was sad. I was a kid. I remember that Billy Collins, Louis Resto fight. And I remember that because it was on the undercard of Roberto Duran becoming a champion again. He beat Davey Moore on Duran's birthday. It was a big upset, and he became a champ at 154 in Madison Square Garden. And Collins and Resto was on the undercard. And yes, that is a doc worth seeing. This is all storytelling. But back to what I was saying. Let me know if you feel like there is a need for more storytelling. Amazon Prime, I didn't watch the second episode. I watched the first. I thought it was fine for the Zoo Fundora fight. Unfortunately, when it came out, they had already shot with Thurman, and Thurman pulled out. So it kind of ruined their show. But hopefully they do more. I'm sure that with Canelo, they've got a fight coming up May 4th, so there's going to be at least 2 episodes. What I miss about HBO 24/7 is a lot of things. First of all, it was 4 episodes, and I know it's expensive to make. It was expensive to make, but there were 4 episodes. And then as budgets changed, there were 3, then 2, then they would do one-offs. Dr. Boxing Talk in the building. Why did they say that in the building? I know, like, I wish he was in the building sitting next to me, but he's in the house. How about that? That's better in the house. I like Margarito prior to the accusations, but after the incriminating evidence against him and his team, though, I couldn't rock with that. Well, yeah. And it was incriminating. I mean, his trainer is still out of boxing, and he was suspended, but he got back in, and he ended up getting a rematch with Cotto, which many think he shouldn't have gotten, but in boxing, boxing rarely does the right things. Tech Dumb Dead, Dr. Boxing Talk. Exactly. The sad thing is he didn't need that illegal advantage. Margarito was fun to watch, and Margarito was fun to watch. He used to call himself the most avoided man in boxing, and I think he was. But I also remember when my man Paul Williams beat him when they matched up, and I don't remember how many. They had to throw at least 2,000 punches between them. Shout out to Paul Williams, the great Paul Williams. But yes, the storytelling is my passion. It's something I love. And I said this at the beginning of the show. DAZN did a show called 40 Days that I did not think was well done. I just didn't think it had any insight, any behind the scenes. I think they had an incredibly bizarre storyline with Ryan Garcia that they completely ignored. Again, I get the politics. DAZN probably wanted to stay away from it. You have to lean into what's going to sell. You have to lean in what's going to sell. And they did not do it. They did not do it. But the real Devin Haney TV, go check. And I don't work with them. I'm not affiliated with them. I've never met Devin Haney or Bill Haney. But what they're doing, I've seen 2 of the 4 episodes, and they're excellent. They have behind-the-scenes footage. It's all storytelling, and people are watching. They're 15-minute-long shows. So there is an attention span when something is good because they have a lot of views. I think that a lot of people nowadays, they think that everything has to be short, 30 seconds, 15 seconds. People won't pay attention. People will pay attention if something is put together well. And Devin Haney's production team, give me a call. I'd love to work with you guys, but you guys are doing excellent work. far, far superior to what DAZN has done, which is a shame because DAZN, I'm sure, has a bigger budget. Yes, sir. Big up to Paul the Punisher Williams. Bikes are so dangerous. Yeah, that's a very sad story. What happened with him, and Cotto's revenge was so satisfying. I got to spend a lot of time with Miguel Cotto as well over the years. The strange thing was, well, maybe not strange, but HBO used to do shows called countdown shows, and they were the predecessors to 24/7. And I was in his camp for when he fought Margarito the first time. We did a countdown show on the whole Puerto Rico versus Mexico rivalry. So being with him, King ST3, George the Man, what up? What's going on, King ST3? What was interesting about Cotto then is he was unbeaten and he was confident. And fighters are never the same after they lose. Whether it's good or bad, they're never the same because they've been beaten as a pro. And I do remember that fight like it was yesterday, and just the way Cotto was bleeding and the way he just was bludgeoned, because it was all Cotto early in that fight. I think that Margarito cheated and he had illegal hand wraps, and that was not the reason why I showed that clip before. That was just a part of 24/7 Cotto Margarito 2. And I wish that ESPN should be doing a blood, sweat, and tears for every single fight. Again, it costs money. They're modifying things. They're doing different types of shows, and that's fine. I love face-off shows. I love to see all that. I think the more shoulder programming, it's called, the more you do, the better. But I think that the shows are needed to build up people, to build up an audience, to get more people to watch, because essentially that's what you want. You either want more people to watch the broadcast, or you want more people to buy the pay-per-view. And that's what HBO did with 24/7. Blood, Sweat, and Tears is for ESPN to get more people to watch their shows. Tech Dumb Dead, I remember Countdown 2. HBO did boxing the way it should be done. Miss HBO boxing so much. So do I. But this is really not to delve into that. It was really just seeing if people want more shoulder programming. Do people want stories? Because again, I've had people tell me they don't care. They don't care about the stories. The fight is the most important thing, which it is. The fight is the most important thing. But I think it goes hand in hand. You have good storytellers, put together good shows, and I've worked with a lot of awesome people who are still in the business. Director of photography, which cameramen, for the people who don't know. Excellent audio people, excellent grips, excellent editors, who have a passion for this, and I think there should be more storytelling in boxing. Dr. Boxing Talk, unpopular opinion, but I've always said that loss should have been expunged from Cotto's record. But like you said, with all the bludgeoning, the damage was done far beyond the record. Well, the problem with that, though, Doc, is we don't know if Cotto was cheating. I'm sorry, if Margarito was cheating before that first Cotto fight. There's no proof. There's only what we think, and the eyes of popular opinion. People think he cheated. He was caught once. He's done it before. So I certainly think he did it in that fight. But listen, I prefaced all this by saying this is subjective, because I might love a certain movie and you might hate it. It's all subjective. Take 15 minutes and go to DAZN. It's on YouTube, and watch 40 Days on the Haney Garcia fight. There's 3 episodes. Only 1 has come out so far. And then go to Real Devin Haney TV and watch what they've done. They've got 4 episodes out. I'm through the first 2. I'm through the first 2 right now, and they are far superior to what DAZN has done. Again, DAZN, look me up. I'd be happy to work with you guys. And even if there was a decree from DAZN to not talk about Ryan Garcia's drug use and the insane path that he's gone down since the press conferences, there's still a way you could have incorporated some of that in the storytelling. You could have started that show with just chaos from Ryan Garcia, but they didn't. They chose a more cookie cutter approach. King SC3, now stories are relevant in my opinion. Okay. Like Bud getting shot in the head, Matias climbing out of his hood, Foster going pro after prison, etc. That's my point. That is my point. Excuse me. That is my point. I mean, the stories, it's always fun to have a fighter for the first time and be able to tell a story. Like when my first 24/7 that I produced was Tim Bradley's, and Tim Bradley had never done a 24/7, so it was brand new. At that point, Manny Pacquiao had already done a few, at least one, maybe two. So it's a fresh story that you can get out there. But the point, it's great to be able to tell someone's story, how they grew up, what inspired them into boxing. But the point of a show like All Access and 24/7 is to be with them and be a part of their lives for a short amount of time and show the things they do. You do the interviews with the people around them. I think that it's something that should be done more. Tech Dumb Dad, yo, George, are you ever going to do live commentary for fights, or maybe watch old close fights and we can debate the fights round by round? You know, that's a great idea. I would love to do that. Are you talking about live commentary, like calling a fight, like Jim Lampley, Roy Jones, like calling a fight like that? Because that's hard. That used to be a dream of mine. I don't know. That's hard to do. I would love to do it with old fights and talk. The problem is rights. You know, not having the rights, your channel can get, you know, struck down, which it's a shame. It's kind of short-sighted because when you show clips of fights or networks, you're really promoting the networks themselves. Showbiz the Adult watches fights while live streaming, and we watch along in chat. Oh, I see what you're saying. So not actually watching the fight, but I don't know, man. I see people do that. A lot of people do that. Why not just watch the fight? Why not just watch the fight? I would love to do that if I think people would be interested. But why not just watch the fight? I could never. I must be slightly ignorant, but when there's a live fight going on, I'm not going to be on YouTube watching someone like me watch the fight and call the fight. But I don't know. I guess if people are into that, you know, Showbiz the Adult, I've seen him. He's got a crazy, awesome, and I mean that respectfully, personality. Drummers again. Thank you, George, for your work. No, thank you. This is not work. Talking boxing is fun. 24/7 Mayweather Judah would have been great. It would have been. Listen, I would have loved to see it. I love to go back and think about, you know, on my YouTube. First of all, subscribe. I think I'm almost at 7,000 subscribers. I'm just a little guy, so I need some help. So like the show, subscribe, share it, get other people to subscribe. If you go to One Round with George on YouTube, the first thing you'll see, the first show that pops up is a mock 24. I should put it on now, but I don't know. It is a mock 24/7 of, if they did 24/7 back in the 1960s, what it would have been like when Sonny Liston fought Cassius Clay. So I did a teaser on that fight, just used archival footage, and I voiced it. I just took the first script for the very first Mayweather De La Hoya fight, kind of flipped it around, and I put a tease together in black and white, just so you could imagine what a 24/7 would have been for a Liston versus Clay. So check that out. Again, go to One Round with George. It's the very first thing that you see. It's the first video that plays is that pretend 24/7. And if I had it available, I would play it right now, but it'll take me too long to get to it. King SC3, I agree fully. That's part of what made HBO Productions so awesome. And again, Showtime, All Access, same show, same type of show, and All Access is missed. We'll see what they do with Amazon Prime. Might have to put a peanut on Para plus 640. Ooh. He's plus 640, huh? Well, he probably deserves to be 640. Don't ask me. One thing I do, there's a person that I want to do a betting show with, but I don't want to be the one doing the bets, because if you ask me to do bets. First of all, I lost money on Oscar De La Hoya against Manny Pacquiao, and I know everyone's laughing, but I also I would have put money on Rolly Romero, and I look like, I mean, I just, I don't know if it's my heart, because I don't really like Rolly, but I thought, oh, his power might get him through. So I'm terrible at betting, but Parrow, I don't know, man. I think Matias is the truth at 140. I really do. Showtime still owns the rights to a boatload of fights, don't they? Almost every fight that's on YouTube, someone owns the rights to it. And a lot of times it'll skate through and no one will say anything. But most of the time, especially with the more recent fights, especially if it's a top-ranked fight, someone will say something. Zach M., you can do a live stream during the fight without showing it. Yeah, that's my point though, Zach. Why don't people want to just watch the fight instead of watching someone call it? But maybe they do. Dr. Boxing Talk. Boxing absolutely needs storytelling. Other sports have seasons that do the build-up throughout the course of the season for the final showdown, championships. Boxing doesn't have that privilege. You're right. It's whatever network is showing it now. Look, when I was growing up, YouTube didn't exist. So to do what I'm doing right now, I would have had to work at ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, HBO, or Showtime. That's the only, you had to have a network job to do what I'm doing right now, what a lot of people can do on YouTube. And more people are forming their own production companies and doing storytelling. And it's important. DAZN is, however you feel about DAZN, they are a major player in the sport of boxing right now. And I think that the shows should be better than that first episode of 40 Days, in my opinion. I think it's on them to make things better. Zach M., showbiz commentary better than the network usually. Well, showbiz, that's what I mean about calling fights. He's got a great personality, and you have to have that. You can't be boring while fights are on just talking, or else no one's going to listen. So if he has an audience for doing that while fights are on, then people feel compelled to watch him rather than watch the fights. I want to watch the fights. Therefore, the storytelling does that and builds serious interests. Yeah. Even when I was, I just keep going back to my HBO days, but I was a producer there, and we did features as well before fights, and maybe preview shows before fights, a few weeks before a fight, because we wanted to drum up interest for that fight, because HBO's a business. They wanted more people to watch the fights, especially the pay-per-views, because it's pay-per-view. Tech Dumb Dad, I listen along and watch the fight while listening to him. All right, well, he must be that good. Jay Rich, missed the live yesterday and late to the show today. I'm slacking. Jay, yeah, I missed you yesterday, but look, these are on YouTube, so you can watch them. I try to make them somewhat entertaining, but Jay, the topic was not HBO 24/7, but it was storytelling, and storytelling in HBO, storytelling in boxing isn't necessary, because I watched the show 40 Days last night on DAZN, and I was not very impressed with the show. And we were talking about HBO's 24/7 show and how excellent it is. And before I leave, I might just have to go and show the mock 24/7 that I did. Yeah, of course, now I can't even find it. So, yeah, Tech, I lost money on Rolly, but I want to bag on Wilder versus Parker. Okay. See, I would have, if I was doing a betting show, I would have told people that Parker's active, but he's been knocked out, because in my mind, I couldn't get the way he was beat down by the British guy that beat him down. His name is escaping me now, but Parker just, I thought Parker was going to get knocked out. So I would have told people to bet on Wilder, and I was wrong. Jay Rich, I think people watch the fight live on TV and listen to these YouTubers call the fights live on their phone instead of hearing the commentators. Okay. Well, a lot of people don't like the commentators that are out there. I say bring back Jim Lampley and Roy Jones. Amazon Prime could have done that. Internet didn't exist when we grew up, George. Hell, man, cable only had 30 channels. Yeah, it's a different day, but you know what? I'm not going to say it's a better day in a lot of respects because I'm able to do this, and I couldn't do this back then. It's worse in a lot of respects too, but that's another show. Did we talk about the latest revelation for the 154-pound saga yet? I don't know what's new. I lose interest quickly on these things. You tell me if I'm wrong. The last I saw, Fundora said he would honor a rematch with Zoo, but Fundora's out till September, which means he won't fight till October, November, which means the belts are on ice. Am I caught up? I think I'm caught up. Yeah. But is it going to be in the fall though? Because he's cleared. I don't know when he can start training. If he can't start training till September because of his nose, then they won't fight till December. So, Jay Rich, as a former producer, how do you feel when Ebzon showed Ugas and said it was Zab Judah? I'm glad you brought that up. I am very glad, Jay, that you brought that up. Now, my very first job with HBO Sports was a graphics. I say graphics producer, but I was a PA. I was a production assistant, and I did graphics. So the person that does graphics, when you watch a fight or a baseball game, football game, every single graphic, there's a person sitting next to operators who actually have the machines that get the graphics on air, but you're the person, you have formats, and you have all the graphics where they're supposed to be. You tell them what's coming next. So that person that got that wrong absolutely got screamed at and yelled at, and whoever that was feels horrible for it. But there's a lot of eyes in those production trucks. Somebody should have caught it, so it was a collective mistake. But the reason why I'm glad you brought that up is one of the worst mistakes I ever made was a James Page Six Heads Lewis fight on HBO. I had no idea if this is on YouTube. James Page and Six Heads Lewis, they were welterweights, were fighting. And I don't remember which fighter was supposed to walk first, so I'll just make this up. I think James Page was supposed to walk first. Or Six Heads Lewis was supposed to walk first. So I told my operator, all right, we got Six Heads next. There's his graphic. And I got busy doing something else. Well, they had switched the walkouts. So instead of Six Heads walking, James Page walked. I didn't realize it. All I had to do was look at the camera and see who was on, and I didn't. So I was looking down, doing other things, and they started the walkout. I said, all right, the graphics are ready. I told the director, the graphics ready. They put it up. So Six Heads Lewis is walking out, and the James Page graphic goes up. And I saw it. And my heart just sank, and I had to tell them, lose the graphic, it's wrong. So, of course, when the next fighter come out, he had his correct name, and I got just demolished all night long for that mistake. So, yeah, it was a bad mistake. One person is getting blamed in the truck, the graphics coordinator, but it was a collective mistake because everybody in that truck, if you don't know who Ugas is and Judah, shame on you. So I feel for that. I feel for that person. Yeah, it was crazy. And again, I've been that person. I made that mistake. Now, there weren't that many people watching James Page and Six Heads Lewis, but actually, I remember a guy that worked in the mailroom at HBO, Paul Williams. His name was Paul Williams as well. That was my guy, and we would talk boxing all the time. And he came up. Now, you would think most people, they don't pay attention to graphics. He came up to my office and he was talking about the fight. And he said, man, I was watching the fights and the graphics had the same guy. It was like James Page against James Page. So I just felt like shit. I mean, he noticed it. So, Combat Sports Media. Storytelling is what captivated the audience to the event. No one watches boxing to find out who the best is. We watch because we're emotionally invested. I agree. Some people might not agree. I think that the main thing about boxing is if you make fights, if you make the good, compelling fights, people will watch. But if you have something great behind it, like a 24/7 or a blood, sweat, and tears or an all-access type of show, if you have something like that behind it, it's going to make it even better because you're right. When you're emotionally invested, it makes you root for someone. You start to have you start to have feelings for someone. I mean, how many like boxing people out there? How many arguments have you been in your life? I really don't get in them anymore. But how many arguments have you gotten in because you're defending your fighter, your guy, and why he's going to beat this guy, or why this guy's the best middleweight of all time. So, that passion comes from being emotionally invested in a fighter, and the easiest way to get emotionally invested in anyone is to know their story. Once you start to know someone's story, you're either going to embrace it and like them, or you might want to see them get beat. That's what Ali, when he was Cassius Clay and then Muhammad Ali, he embraced that bad guy, and people paid to see him beat. Floyd Mayweather did the same thing. Money Mayweather, he did the same thing. But he knew that people were going to watch. People love stories. So, Joe Joyce, thank you. The name escaped me. So if I was giving you betting advice on the Deontay and Parker fight, I would have said, listen, man, Parker got abused by Joe Joyce, and Zhang knocked out Joyce twice. Put your money on Wilder, and you would have lost. And that's why I'm not good at betting. Jed 1617 would love an audio option that just captures the sounds of the fights organically. No commentary. Not a fan of last week's Zoo commentary. Yeah, it's all subjective. And that would be cool. I feel like it's been done by people, but I don't remember. It would be nice if you could just watch the fight and hear the punches, hear the referee, hear the bell, hear the corners. By the way, that's another thing that a lot of these, especially these pay-per-views, and DAZN does this all the time. DAZN, when the round is over, instead of going to the corners, they'll cut to a promo or a commercial. That was the whole thing behind HBO back in the day, way before I worked with them. That's what made them special, because the networks, in between rounds, when boxing was on real free TV, almost every round they had to dip out to do a commercial to pay for things. HBO went to the corners every single, and it's just not done enough. It should be done every single round. The Zoo commentary, it felt very much like a Showtime fight, except Al Bernstein wasn't there, and I miss Al. I'm an old school guy, so I miss Al Bernstein. I wish he would have been there. But I'm also a Jim Lampley. I'm an HBO guy. I'm a Lampley guy. I'm a Roy Jones guy. I think Jim Lampley should be calling fights. I think Roy Jones should be calling fights, and it was criminal. I interviewed Jim Lampley not too long ago, and he said when he left HBO, no one offered him a job. So, there you go. What I think was that the announcers are not long-term. So I don't know if they have long-term contracts with Amazon Prime. I don't know if they'll switch up things. You would think they would not want to switch up the broadcast team. They would want to keep them consistent, but we'll see. I was at the fights Friday. A lot of people rolled in late and missed Rolly Cruz. It happened so early. Well, Zach, that was one thing, me being on the East Coast, that I loved, that they kept those fights moving, man. I mean, that main event was on, I think it was before 11 o'clock Eastern time. And sometimes it'll be 12 o'clock, 12:30, and the fight still hasn't happened. So I was glad to see it happen quick. And for the people who missed, man, get to the fights. You got a ticket. Get to the fights. People like to come late and just be there for the main event. Man, when I was at HBO, and I've talked about my 24/7 days. I worked on the first two. I was not producing, but I was working on them. Our fourth episode would be in Vegas. We would shoot in Vegas and produce it in Vegas, and they would get us tickets for the fight. I'm the kind of guy, with my ticket, I was there when the doors opened, when there was like 20 people in the crowd, hours before the main event. Hours. But that's me. That might be extreme, but for the people that missed Rolly Cruz, hey, so what? Tech Dumb Dad, I'm hearing late November, early December. Yeah, for Zoo Fundora. That's what I'm saying, boxing analyst. Zoo Fundora, nice time to run Crawford and Spence. But if Spence says he's back, if he's in the ring saying he wants Fundora, that's not going to happen till December. A rematch, supposedly. Run it back. Why not run it back? And Zach, I know you meant Saturday. I see your comment. I know you meant Saturday. Run it back. Run that rematch back. I don't want to see it, but what these guys have been inactive since then. And Bud Crawford, I love Bud. And he did his whole, he had a great, it was great to see him get his props, I'm not going to say get his flowers, get his respect that he didn't get after he beat Spence. He was doing talk shows and Breakfast Club and all these shows. It's April. Before you know it, it's going to be a year since that fight, and Bud is 36. So that's one of the problems in boxing. And who knows when these two guys are going to fight again. Tech Dumb Dad, I don't want to see Crawford Spence again. To be honest, I don't think Spence deserves a rematch with how bad he got whooped. But I would watch, though, because, I feel the same way. But if they do rematch, what the whole narrative, it's going to be the storytelling. See, this is all about storytelling in boxing. If they have a rematch, every single show you see, every promo you see, it's going to be Errol talking about the weight and talking about his eye. I don't think the crash has anything to do with it, but it's the weight. He was drained. It was the eye. He had all these issues, and that's why he lost. That's what you have to do. You have to spin things. And if I was working on those shows, if I was on wherever they're going to fight, Amazon Prime, I don't even know what they call their show. That's how I would spin it. You have Errol saying those things that he, he had the eye issues, that the weight was a problem. So they'll spin it. And that, because what else are you going to do? King ST3. That's why I want Tim to get his belts back. Yeah. Well, that's a whole, I've listened to, I'm a little tired of the whole Zoo Fundora story. It's already Thursday and people are still talking about it. What happened. Tim versus Spencer Crawford is way more interesting than a Fundora. Agreed, but you know what? Fundora has the belts. And you know what was funny? What I've said is funny about boxing, how boxing usually does the wrong thing. By the way, I only meant to do this for 30 minutes talking about storytelling. We're still talking about storytelling, but it's been a little more than 30 minutes. So the funny thing about boxing is that there's no fairness. So people who say, oh, that's not fair, go cry somewhere else. Go cry somewhere else. This is boxing. Boxing is dirty and grimy, and it's not about any fairness at all. So my point to this is Sebastian Fundora gets knocked out by Brian Mendoza's last fight. Circumstances happen. He gets rewarded. He lost his last fight. His reward is a shot at 2 belts. He was going to get a shot at a vacant belt anyway. Errol Spence, if he were to fight Fundora next, a guy who got, massacred in his last fight, wasn't even close in his last fight against Bud, his reward would be a shot at 2 belts. So do they deserve it? No. But fair, deserve, you can't use those words in boxing. They just don't belong in boxing because it's about money. And it's about, not only about money, it's about keeping things in-house. So that's how I feel on that. Tech Dumb Dad, I think Bud only has at most 3 more fights, then rides off into the sunset. Chris Algieri thinks that Bud is going to retire at the end of the year, which I don't think he will, because who knows if he's going to fight by the end of the year. Tech Dumb Dad, if not for the cut, I think Tim would have Fundora gone by that. Yes, that's what I thought. I thought 6-7 rounds and the fight is over. The problem is Bud doesn't have any huge retirement paydays around unless the Hail Mary Canelo fight happens. Agreed. He said he wanted big fights, and Canelo's not going to give him that fight. So where's his big fight? It's not Charlo. Charlo, I think, still has some belts at 154, I think. But that's not happening anytime soon. And would that even be a big money fight? The most compelling fight for Bud, if he stayed at 147, would be against Boots Ennis. That's not a big money fight, I guess. It's not big enough for him. So there's the problem in boxing. Boots Ennis stale. It gets stale. Bud gets stale. Look, we were talking storytelling. I want the corner talks to be more involved too. Want to hear the coaches coach. Yeah. Well, that's, you know what? That's part of storytelling too during a fight. And I think that's where boxing is that's where boxing is. My daughter's just coming home from school. That's where boxing is dropping the ball, because you're talking about storytelling in shows like 24/7 and All Access and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but storytelling is also during the fight itself. It's during the fight itself, and it's listening to the corners. The commentators tell the story of the fight, and you listen to the corners, and the corners tell the story of what's happening. And it's just not happening now. Jay Rich, I don't know. I enjoy commentaries during fight, even if I think they suck. Just like hearing others' opinions of what we're seeing to gauge if I agree or if I think the broadcast is biased. Yeah, I hear you, Jay. I love Max Kellerman call fights. It hurt my heart to hear how biased he was during that Canelo Triple G fight. Well, yeah, Max. It happens. It happens. I didn't really know Max well when we worked at HBO, because Max is a good dude, but I just never had the chance to really work with him. I didn't do a lot of live shows, and I didn't produce the live shows. So the producer on the live show is much more interactive with the people calling the fight. King ST3, I like the fact Bob Ammer's there early as F, watching the entirety of East. Yeah, hey, and Bob is 93, so good for him. Boxing analyst, that's what I'm saying. DAZN does a terrible job at this, putting ads during corner breaks. It's terrible. But, I'm not super technically advanced, so I wish I had polls up here to see if people like features. If you like shows like 24/7 and All Access and Blood, Sweat, and Tears, should there be less shows like that? Should there be more shows like that? Again, I urge everyone to go to Devin Haney TV. Sorry, Real Devin Haney TV on YouTube and check out their series on. They have a series leading up to the Ryan Garcia fight. There's 4 up. I don't know if they're doing any more, but there's 4 up, and I've watched 2 of them, and I think they're excellent. Without Ryan Garcia's side, I think they're doing a great job. They have real great behind the scenes access. They're doing a good job of storytelling without a narrator. The people are telling the story. And I think, I think whoever's doing those shows at Real Devin Haney TV, you guys ought to go to DAZN and tell them, look, this is what your show should be. Let me, meaning them, take over production for whatever they're doing over at DAZN, because the 40 days, you don't have to take my word for it. Go watch it. You might love it. But to me, it was cookie cutter. It was basic. It wasn't compelling. And they missed the whole Ryan Garcia storyline. He's off the rails. I don't think he should be fighting. I think he's got terrible people around him. I think all they want to do is get paid and get him to the finish line, which is April 20th, so they all get that check at the end of the night. But that being besides the point, they had a whole storyline in front of them. When you do these shows, the first thing you do, if I was on Fury Usyk, if I was working that, I don't even know if they're doing a show, but the first thing you do is you start to write down ideas for shows, ideas for segments, things we can talk about. That's the very first thing you can do. Sometimes it's hard, especially if they're fighters that have been on a lot. It's hard to come up with new stories. Like Mayweather and Pacquiao did so many 24/7s. It was harder and harder to make it compelling because you've seen it before. How many times have you seen Floyd Mayweather buying cars or buying jewelry? And Devin Haney is starting to do a lot. He's buying jewelry. But how many times can you see that before it just becomes like the first time, man, it was funny. Like the first time when 50 Cent was on 24/7 with Floyd Mayweather and they got stacks of money and they're acting like they're phones talking to each other. That stuff is funny, but it starts to get old after a while. So you're looking for compelling storylines. If I was doing Haney Garcia, there is no more storyline. There's no storyline more compelling than what Ryan Garcia has going on, what he's done since that first press conference. You got the whole history between these two, 6 fights in the amateurs. So they have a history, which is great. And they should use that as well. But they dropped the ball, man. They just, I don't know. And I do know something about the inner workings of networks and my belief is, and I don't know anyone at DAZN, but I think that they were told, the production people, stay away from Ryan Garcia and drugs and all the social media stuff and his craziness. Stay away from it. And they did. But the funny thing is, if you're creative, call me. If you're creative, call me. If you're creative, you can work those things into the storyline. But they didn't. So be it. King SC3. Funny, when I think of Devin, I think of how he was complaining about Loma's jabs in the corner, saying, but he's throwing 3 at a time. And Bill, unable to tell him anything. Storytelling moment. That's my point. We're talking storytelling here. We're weaving other stories into the storytelling, but we're talking storytelling here. And yes, when you hear the corners, think over the years. And only certain ones jump to mind because you forget. You watch so many fights, you forget. But think about how cameras in the corners are so big in telling a story during a fight. And I can go back to 1982. My year might be wrong, but Alexis Arguello and Aaron Pryor in their battle at 140 for Pryor's belt in Miami. Arguello's coming on. He's landing bombs. I mean, he landed some right hands on Pryor that literally made him look up at the sky. But there was that moment in the corner where Panama Lewis asked for the bottle, the one I mixed, and they caught that. And that became a storyline. That was a storyline for the night. That was a storyline for the next day. That was a storyline for the next decade. And it's still a storyline about what happened in that fight. Angelo Dundee, 1981, my favorite fighter, who's behind me right there. Sugar Ray Leonard in the first Tommy Hearns fight, late in the fight, I don't know, 11th, 12th round. Angelo Dundee saying, you're blowing it, son. You're blowing it. You only got 6 minutes. So it must have been after the 13th, I think. It was iconic, and it was a part of the storytelling for that night. And it's still a part of the storytelling. So DAZN, you're dropping the ball when you don't show the corners during fights. I get that it's a business. I get you have to get your promos in. Get them in somewhere else, man. You guys take like an hour between fights. You can't get all the promos in. Hey, DAZN, call me and let me help you. Call me and let me help you. Because we're talking about storyline. And another one, I remember James Toney, when he fought Vasily Girov for a cruiserweight belt. And it was going into the 12th round, I believe, and Freddie Roach was saying, you got to knock him on his ass. And James Toney went out there and he dropped Girov in a great fight, and Toney ended up winning the title. But, and one more, because they're starting, my brain's working kind of slow. Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson. Emmanuel Stewart beating on Lennox Lewis's chest, saying, you got a dead man in front of you. Get him out of there. Because he knew that Tyson, even though he wasn't Tyson, he was still dangerous. And while he was throwing punches, he was still dangerous. So we're going back to storytelling. And listen, those are just a few iconic corner moments. But we got that because they told a story in between rounds. And that's my point. And that's my whole point of this show. Boxing analyst Bill got exposed there. You know something. I think Bill, though, you got to give Bill credit. I think Bill Haney is a big reason why Devin is where he is. And if you know Bill's story, the Haneys were in every gym. They were in Floyd's gym. They work with Freddie. They work with a lot of different trainers. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. So they really they got a lot of experience working with different trainers, and he uses that. He said that. So his story is George D. Metellus. What's up, my man? It seems like 154 is as interesting or maybe as messy as what's going on at 140. That's all subjective. I think there's no comparison in the class of fighter in each division. 154, we'll see. I mean, to me, it's lost a lot of steam because if Fundora is going to be out till September, then those belts are on ice. So if you want to have Bud and Spence fight at 154, you can do it. Listen, 140, nothing is more interesting. Nothing is more interesting to me than the 140-pound division. Nothing. No division in boxing there's like 69 divisions in boxing now. Not one is more interesting than 140. 154, we'll see. We'll see how it gets. I think I mean, it's been talked about. Let's talk in like September, and we'll see what's going on in that division, because I think it's going nowhere unless Bud fights. I don't even know. I think Charlo has a belt. Fundora's got 2 belts. Charlo might have the 2 others. I don't. It's hard to keep up with the way how people get stripped. Except one guy doesn't get stripped, and that's Canelo. He never gets stripped. He will pass away, and he will still be a WBC champ in some division. Tech Dumb Dad, I believe weight drain comes down to almost exact science. And if you do it wrong, you are actually drained. But if you do it right, and you've been doing it right, then that's no excuse to me. I get it. But fighters use excuses. I mean, there has to be, in their mind, there has to be a reason why I lost. It's hard for a fighter to say, I was at my best 100% and I couldn't beat him. Fighters don't do that. You have to say there's a reason why I lost that fight. And you have, I mean, it's just a instinctual thing. Man, I've been on this thing for an hour. 168 is stacked even without Canelo or Benavidez. I think 168 wins most interesting as well. Now, I think behind 140, 168 is stacked and packed. And I agree. Take out Canelo and Benavidez. You got Munguia and Diego Pacheco and then Billy and Caleb Plant, who he always is forgotten. Caleb Plant. There are just some, and David Morrell. There are some great fights to be made at 168. And Diego Pacheco has a fight this weekend. So he's got a fight, and he's only 23, I believe, 23 years old. So it's a young division. It's a real young division. Caleb Plant might be the elder statesman, or actually Canelo. Canelo might be older than Plant. But the point is, man, there are a lot of great fights to make at 168. So I think the top 2 divisions are 140 and 168. And unfortunately, the top guys don't seem to be fighting each other. It seems to have happened more at 168. Benavidez and Plant fought. So I give props to that. Canelo's fighting Munguia, not the person that people want, but Munguia is among the best at the division. There's Edgar Berlanga too, if you want to throw him in there. So there's so much talent. The bad thing about 140 is these top guys don't seem to be fighting each other. I am not. Now, the Paro fight, Matias fight, that's a good fight. A lot of people won't know who Paro is, though. But Teofimo Lopez has a fight coming up. And a fight he's going to absolutely annihilate the guy he's fighting with 7 losses. Claggett, I think. I'm not interested in that fight. I'm not. I'm going to watch it because anytime, I'm a sucker. Anytime these guys fight, I'm going to watch. But that's not going to move the needle. No one cares about that fight. It's April. Before you know it, we're going to be halfway through the year, and none of these guys at 140 will have fought each other, and I think that's a terrible thing. Miro, hello, George. Off topic here. I was sad to see ProBox parting ways with you, but on the positive side, I found your channel. Sending love from Palestine. We love you over here. Man, wow. I appreciate that. And yes, I was also sad about ProBox, but life goes on. They make their decisions, and that's how it is. Life goes on. But I'm sending love right back to you over there, and subscribe, because listen, ProBox, they're like the big dogs. They got 100,000 subscribers. I've got like 6,900 and something. So I'm trying to get to 7,000, then 8,000, then 9. So I'm a little guy. You know, I'm thinking I was just too small for ProBox. You know, they need names. I will say this, and I don't want to go on a ProBox tangent, but I will say this. I never lost sight that people want to hear from Chris and Paulie and Teddy and Sean and Tim. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Tim Bradley, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, Teddy Atlas, Sean Porter. You want to hear from the people who did it, the champions, the Hall of Famers, the trainers. So I was always I knew my role there. It was literally just to set them up, to have good discussions with them. And I was very proud of the work that we did there. The sparring session show, I think, was epic. I think could have been a huge hit. And I was a part of that. I was a huge part of that. I came up with the topics and I built a friendship with all those guys over there that even though we weren't in the studio together, I think it still translated. And those guys are good dudes. They're my brothers. And yeah, I enjoyed my time there. Tech Dumb Dad. Appreciate you, George. So cool to have someone with your background just sit with us regulars and talk boxing and share your experience from your career. Nobody's a regular. We're all boxing fans. I'm a boxing fan too. And I don't know. I've talked for an hour and 11 minutes. And because I just feed off of what people are saying, I just love to talk about the sport. And I was not going to do this today, but literally it spurred me last night when I saw the zone show, the 40-day show, and how I just disliked it and I didn't like the storytelling. And again, if you like it, it's okay. I'm not here to argue with you. To me, I didn't like it personally. I thought it just lacked in a lot of areas. And it got me thinking about other shows I've worked on, Blood, Sweat, and Tears and 24/7 and All Access and the need, the necessity for that in the sport. Mike Leonardo Jr., what's up, fam? What's going on, man? There's so many people who love the sport and just love to talk about the sport. And that's all listen, if I was I got into boxing when I think I was 9 or 10 years old. So if I grew up in this era, I would have been that 10-year-old with my own YouTube. I would have been a phenom. I would have had a YouTube channel and I would have been a little kid at the fights interviewing people. Now I'm the older kid that gets to do this. Jay Rich, You're Blowing It, Son gives me goosebumps every single time. Angelo Dundee, it is iconic. Whenever it's iconic. It's iconic. That's all you can say. You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it. I mean, Angelo Dundee before the last round with Leonard and Hagler and Leonard in Leonard's corner before the last round, telling him 3 minutes. You only got 3 minutes. New champ. So this all relates to storytelling, right? And even Pro Box is guilty of this too. I want to hear what the corners are saying during the fight. It's part of the story. But no one does it worse than DAZN. No one. I don't want to see a Jiffy Lube commercial, when I'm watching a fight and want to hear what happened in between rounds. I don't want to see a commercial, but that's what they do because it's a business. So what are you going to do? Look at that. People even know each other. People know each other in the chat. Tech Dumb Dad, I think Pacheco makes short work of his opponent this weekend. Yeah, I don't know enough about the guy he's fighting. I tried to watch some fights of his. He's an unbeaten guy. He's 30 years old. He's a former Division II quarterback. I think he was a quarterback. So Pacheco seems to be the truth. He seems to be like he is the truth. So that's the fight that I'm really looking forward to seeing this weekend. King ST3. Now 135 prospects are super interesting too. Oshaki, Keyshawn. Well, Shaki's at 130, right? But Keyshawn Carmel, he won't see anything serious for a bit, but goddamn, he's 17, looking like Tank. Yeah, 130. Listen, 135 and 140, because you got Shakur down there too. So, and guess who's still there? Lomachenko. I think Lomachenko is going to be a champion yet again. I think he beats Kambosos when they fight. I believe that fight is it in May? I don't know what it is. But I think Lomachenko is going to be champion again. So 135, 140, so much talent. If you want to get nostalgic and you wonder why people loved the Four Kings so much, and who are the Four Kings? Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. To me, there's a fifth king too, Wilfred Benitez too. But the reason why that era is so beloved is because they all fought each other. Now you got like 6 princes, not princesses, princes. I'm not going to say they're kings yet, but I might leave a name out. But Tank, Shakur, Tio, Haney, Matthias. That's 5 right there. There's other names you could throw in. They have the potential to be remembered as that. This has the potential to be remembered as that kind of an era None of them has fought each other. I just named 5 fighters. So you want to throw some more? It's funny. The only guy that's fought any of them, and Lomachenko, I think, is too old to be in there. But Haney's fought Lomachenko, and Ryan Garcia has fought Tank, and now he's fighting Haney. So Tank, that's another name in there. I don't think I put that in there. Tank, that's 6. So my biggest, it's not a fear, it's not a regret, but I think the biggest mistake that boxing could make is not have those guys fight each other. Well, it's April 4th, and there's no hint at those guys fighting each other. Tank may be fighting Frank Martin, which I think is a good fight. Teofimo's got a fight coming up. I do. It's not moving the needle. Shakur, I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm always rocking with these fighters from Jersey. Shout out to Ray Savage, Camden, New Jersey, another champ. But Shakur's got a fight. I don't think it's been signed yet. It's not going to inspire anyone. So Shakur's been out for a minute, so he needs a comeback fight, I guess. But these guys should be fighting each other. There's too many guys that I just rattled off right there. There's too many guys for them to not fight each other. Yeah, Zach, hit the thumbs up. I've been doing this. Man, I wish I got paid. Well, I wish I got paid, period. But if I got paid by the hour, hit the thumbs up, Zach. And like and subscribe, please. Tech Dumb Dad, Kerman Motan looks like a future superstar. He's scary. Needs to tighten that leap in. Does it too often. Needs to tame it down a little. Really set that up. But man, he looks polished for 17. Yes, he does. And he will. He'll tighten it up. He can, you know how it is. When the type of fighters he's fighting now, he can do those things. He can do those things now, like leaping in, jumping in. He can do those against these fighters. He'll tighten it up the more experience he gets. And he won't be doing that kind of thing when he moves up. Think about Naseem Hamed. Hamed used to do crazy things in the ring, unorthodox things in the ring, but he didn't really do it when he fought guys like Marco Antonio Barrera or Kevin Kelly. So, and if you haven't seen those fights, make sure you watch them. But yeah, Kermel, 17 years old, man. Tech Done Dad, exactly. He had commentators quivering with excitement. Yeah. Mike Leonardo, yo, George, let's talk weight classes soon. Let's do it. I would love to talk weight classes. And you know what's sad? What's sad is the welterweight division and the middleweight division, 2 staples. Boxing used to have 8 divisions. Now it's got 96. It used to have 8 divisions. And 2 of the staples were welterweight and middleweight. There was no junior middleweight. And now those divisions, you got Boots Ennis, who I think has the potential to be a super duper star in the sport. He's got no one to fight. Well, I take that back. He's got people to fight, but there's no iconic fights for him. You know what he should do? Just keep fighting. Keep beating people. Keep beating people. Mike Tyson, when Mike Tyson became champ, he didn't really have the big fight for him was Michael Spinks back then. But what he did was he kept fighting and he was active and he mowed down fighter after fighter after fighter and cleaned the division out till Spinks had no choice but to face him. What good is it doing Boots Ennis to be inactive? Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi talk about activity all the time. What good is it doing him by being inactive? He's got he's probably one of the most talented fighters in the sport, and now he's inactive. So it's not doing him any good. It's not doing his brand any good by not being seen. So it's sad. Let me put some water on your balls. Yeah. Another gem from between rounds that advertising did ruin. Man, when I was at HBO, there was I forget his name, but there was a Spanish interpreter who, when there was a Spanish fighter, he would interpret for the crowd what things were being said. And I don't remember which fight it was, but he used to notoriously get it wrong. And these guys are fighting, and this is what he's saying in between rounds. His translation is, that black guy hits hard. That's not what he said, because I talked to someone I knew that worked at HBO. I said, is that what he's saying? He said, no, he didn't say anything like that. So, yeah, I think that the between Oshaki, 30 years old. Look, Oshaki's a champion. Let's get it right. Jay, I know you know that. He is a champion. He is a champ. So we're talking storytelling here. Mimero, I hope I'm saying your name right, but I know you hit me up before. George, you think the corporation business side knows that the new age fans, especially the TikTok era, just don't need the stories behind. They just want the one fast hit dopamine. You might be right, but see, I'll counter that because OTX is I need to get more into OTX, but I believe they are doing I know they're doing boxing and they're trying to cater to a younger audience. They're also doing storytelling, but they're doing it on Instagram and they're doing it on social media. I disagree with you there. I think there's still a need for storytelling. It can be short stories. It can be, short things that you do with the fighters, but I'm always going to be on the side of storytelling. But you do have to cater to the audience. But I think there's still a need because OTX seems to be swinging into doing this for a younger crowd, and they have said that they are incorporating more storytelling into their shows. And I think they have a show coming up on Friday, which I definitely want to check out. But I appreciate you. Abdullah Mason, my favorite prospect at the moment, would give anyone 135 pounds. Yes, Abdullah Mason, and he's got a brother. So Abdullah is there are a lot of just great young fighters. This is what I love. See, this is what I love. I came on here. I said I'm going to do like 30 minutes. I'm going to rip the zone for the 40-day show. It's going to talk about 24/7 and All Access and what they're doing on Amazon Prime and Blood, Sweat, and Tears on ESPN. Check out Blood, Sweat, and Tears on ESPN. We're talking about storytelling, and then it just evolves into talking about prospects. And all I am is just like you. I am a guy that loves to talk about boxing. Shakur fighting a cab driver next. Well, you know what? Julio Cesar Chavez fought a lot of those. He had over 100 fights, so he fought a lot of those. My hope with Shakur is that, listen, the names that I've named, all those top fighters at 135 and 140, I don't care what matchup you make. And Pitbull Cruz, I forgot to put Pitbull Cruz in there. The new champ. Just make the fights. Just make the fights. You make the fights people are going to watch. To your point, you make the fights that people are going to watch. You make the fights that people want to see, people are going to watch. You make the good fights, and people will watch. If you don't, Navarrete next fight at 135. Yeah, I believe he's fighting for a vacant belt. I don't think he deals with those guys though at 135, and definitely not 140. I don't think he deals with those guys well. Shakur should fight Murtai. Murtai has a lot of hype around him, but to me, he doesn't look special. Yeah, Murtai, he definitely did not look good in his last fight. And Tim Bradley, who I talk to a lot, Tim Bradley is very high on him with good reason, but he didn't look great in his last fight. But here's another problem in the sport. It's like, what have you done for me lately? Sometimes fighters won't look great in a fight, but he's learning. You have to think that Murataya is learning every fight, and he's going to be better in his next fight. That's what you think. That's what usually happens with fighters. Not every fight is brilliant. Mike Tyson was, before he won a title, he was destroying everyone. He fights Quick Tillis, goes 10 rounds. He drops Tillis. He gets a decision. Some people think he shouldn't have won it. A lot of people are saying he was exposed. No, he wasn't. He was a young kid learning his craft, getting better. I think that's what Muay is going to do. So we'll see. I really try not to be knee-jerk with these fights. When a fighter looks particularly good or bad, they have a body of work behind them. So I think Muay is getting better, and I do agree with that. But I'm from Jersey. I'm from Rahway, New Jersey. So Shakur's from Jersey. So I'm always going. I'm always going with Shakur. Jay Rich, both Shakur and Boots in the same boat. They both need to move up in weight where all the smoke is. No one at 47 for Boots, and only Tank at 35 for Shakur. Moving up to the next division with the big names. Okay, but you just said it. Tank is there at 35 for Shakur. But now you get into the nonsense, the business BS that I hate with all my heart, why fights don't get made, because I think the fighters want to make them, but the business doesn't let them. Who wouldn't want to see Tank and Shakur fight? Maybe you don't want to see that fight. I certainly do. Shakur's special. Don't let those he is boring folks sway you. He has all the tools to be a Hall of Famer. Yes, and De Los Santos, let's see people step in the ring with him, by the way. Shakur is a special fighter, and Shakur won that fight. Some people are saying it was controversial. There was nothing controversial about that fight. Nothing. He won that fight. Jay Rich, I honestly don't think anyone at 135, 140 beats Shakur. Haney has the best chance and could win, but anyone else, I have Shakur with these. I'm with you, but Haney, how can you not like Haney and what he's done? I think at 135, he was draining himself, and I disagreed with Paulie on the air. I think Haney won the Lomachenko fight. I think Lomachenko fought well. He really did. It was a really good fight, but I think Haney won it. And then Haney in his first fight at 140 just dominates Regis Prograis. Just dominated him like nobody thought he would. He was not even in that fight. So he looks sensational. He looks sensational at 140. And the thing about Devin is he's consistent. I mean, he's still getting better. He's still young too. But then you got a guy like Teofimo Lopez. I like all these guys, man. I like all these guys. Teofimo Lopez he looks good one fight, or he looks sensational here, pedestrian here. Sensational here, pedestrian. Jermaine Ortiz, I thought he won the fight. But I did not think it was a good fight for him. Big Supreme. You're not on ProBox TV? No, sir. ProBox TV has moved on. Tech Done Dead, my favorite YouTube time now. Love talking boxing with y'all. See, that's the thing. I mean, I wish no, I don't. Because I see some of those YouTube channels where there's not even 6 faces talking. It's 6 icons because people don't want to be on camera for some reason. So it's 6 pulsating icons or whatever you call it, talking at once. I don't like that. I don't like that. Big Supreme Hardani is not a cab driver. He is. He is and Big Supreme. I did not say that. I did not say he was a cab driver. What I said is that fight to me doesn't really move the needle. It's not a bad fight. I'm just glad he's fighting because every fighter will tell you that when you're active, you're better. Look at Joseph Parker. Look at Anthony Joshua. These guys are active and they're getting better each fight. So I'll be there though because I think they're going to be fighting in Newark. So I'll be back in Jersey to watch that. So yeah, I try not to. Now listen, Chavez did fight a lot of cab drivers. Back in the day, Greg Haugen, a former lightweight, he was a champ, I think at 35. But he fought Julio Cesar Chavez in Mexico, and he made he was mocking Chavez, saying he's fought a lot of cab drivers, and then he got the bejesus beaten out of him. So no Supreme, no, he isn't. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know if he's an Olympian or not. So I really don't. He's not a cab driver. I get your point. I get your point. He's a professional boxer. So King SC3, I'd love to see Boots go to 154 and fight Spence. I would too. But I don't think he wanted to be handed a belt the way he was. Because he's a champion, but he didn't earn it in the ring. He was given a belt. And I think he wishes he would have won it in the ring. He should have gotten a shot a long time ago, but we know the whole story at 147 and why that didn't happen. Remember, it was supposed to be him and Virgil Ortiz, Boots Ennis and Virgil. They were going to be the guy. Virgil Ortiz, another guy at 54 to throw in that mix, but it was supposed to be Boots and Virgil. They were going to be the next, Leonard Hearns of 147 or Bud and Spence. and it didn't happen. I mean, Virgil is gone. He's at 154, and who knows? Maybe Boots will move up. Boots just has to fight. Here we are in April. It seems like it's been a year since Boots has fought. I know it hasn't, but Big Supreme almost spit my coffee. Yeah. Jay Rich, of course, I want to see that, but I think Tank should move to 142, and Pitbull getting that belt will probably line up that rematch. And then Tank at 140, no one else at 135 with Shakur. Tank Davis. I respect, I admire that dude. I think when he fought Pitbull, he hurt his right hand. He was throwing an uppercut. He got hurt, and then he boxed Cruz's behind off. He did. He looked sensational. He's not just a bomber. Tank is one of the best fighters in the world. But it's not a criticism, and I'm not a hater. But when you look at his record, you go on BoxRec, and you look at his record, it's underwhelming. It's underwhelming, and they could have made better fights. They could have, and they haven't. So I don't really want to see him fight Pitbull again. I've seen it. I don't want to see it again. I want to see Pitbull and Matias fight. Let Tank and Shakur fight. Please let Tank and Shakur fight. And I don't hate Tank, but you just, if you look at his record, his resume, that's what your record is. That's your resume, who you fought. Ultimately, that's how you're judged when it's said and done. It's the guys you fought and beat, and he's beaten everyone put in front of him, no doubt. But I think that there are fights that could be made that aren't made. I wish I could pronounce your name because I don't want to disrespect you. When I look at the UFC events and cards, it makes me sometimes jealous. We need to make boxing great again. Well, boxing's never going anywhere. People ask all the time, like, what do you think? How do you think boxing is doing? I think boxing's in a good place. I think it was different when I was a kid. There were things called newspapers, and they were on the front page. Boxing was on every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, during the day, during the afternoons, and then HBO on Saturday nights. So it's a different place, but I think the way I'm not a genius. The way to make boxing great again is to have the best fighters fight each other. It's simple. Now we're going to have a unified heavyweight champion, Usyk and Fury. Finally, since it hasn't been like that since Lennox Lewis. Finally, we're going to have Beterbiev and Bivol fight to see who's supreme at 175. So boxing is in a good place. And it gets in that good place by having the best fight each other. Haney and Garcia is not the best fighting each other. Haney is one of the best, and he's fighting a guy who's one of the biggest names. So UFC, it's easy for them because they own the whole game. They're like their own NBA and MLB. Boxing is the wild, wild west, and boxing's never going to be like it. That's why Saudi Arabia making a push, making these fights. I think it's good for boxing. Devin also weighed like 168 versus, you know what? But he made weight. I mean, I don't know what he weighed the day of, and I don't know if there's any restrictions on the night of fight, but he made weight, you know, and it drains every fighter to some degree to make weight. Haney Loma was one of those rare fights that could have went any way to me. Haney win, a draw, or Loma win. I personally had Haney winning though. As long as no one's calling it a robbery, I'm good. Yeah. I agree. I thought it was 115, 113. But Paulie Malignaggi will go to his grave saying it was a robbery. But I don't think so. I think the right man won. But I think it was a really entertaining fight, and it showed that Lomachenko still has something left. And I think Lomachenko is going to beat up Kambosos when they fight. Haney is a beast at what he does, but that chin is sus. Needs to execute every round and not get clipped. How long can you stay focused is a question every time when it comes to Haney. I don't know. I don't think he's shown a suspect chin. I remember Linares hurt him, but how many fighters can you go back in history on and call their chin? Think about this. he was Cassius Clay at the time, but I'm going to call him Muhammad Ali. When Ali fought Henry Cooper, he was knocked down. By Henry Cooper, he was dropped by a left hook. Now, when he was fighting Sonny Liston, people were saying, well, Liston's going to kill him. Liston is going to hurt him. They thought Liston was literally going to kill Ali because they said, oh, he's got no chin. He's been dropped. He got dropped by someone else, Sonny Banks maybe. But he was dropped by Henry Cooper, and people said, he's got no chin. He's going to get obliterated. What happened in that fight? And then it turns out that Ali had the best chin probably in the history of the sport, which turned out to be part of his downfall as well. So, I think everyone's chin is suspect. That people have been wobbled and hurt at certain times. If you want to take that argument, I'm not saying you're wrong, Tech Dumb Dad, but Sugar Ray Leonard, when Sugar Ray fought Kevin Howard in his comeback fight after his detached retina saga, he got dropped in that fight by right hand. Wasn't hurt, got up and won the fight. But then 3 years later, when he's fighting Marvelous Marvin Hagler, people are saying, come on, man. Kevin Howard, a journeyman, dropped, I shouldn't say that. Kevin Howard, a good fighter, but not a great fighter, dropped Sugar Ray Leonard. Hagler's going to destroy him. And he didn't. So I hear you about the chin, but fighters get hit. And I think they learn from it. But it's hard for me to say that he's got a suspect chin because even Lennox Lewis, people were saying that about him. He was knocked out twice, but you see what he did in rematches against both guys, and then fought a bunch of guys that could punch and was never knocked out again. So looks like Big Supreme has settled this. Bronze medal at the 2016 Olympics. If that is the case, Big Supreme, you have reigned supreme, and you have won that debate. So he indeed, I'm going to take you at your word, indeed he is an Olympian. So that means something. King SC3 said that earlier too. Don't see that dog in him yet. I think that's because he knows his chin is I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Time is going to tell. Time is going to tell. If Devin Haney doesn't have a chin and he fights guys like Tank, he's gonna run into punchers. And if he doesn't have a chin, it's going to be tested. Matias will test you. And if you don't have a chin, you're going to fail that test. Thing about Devin that loses me is he won't go for a finish when he hurts someone. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that he could have taken out Prograis, but he didn't. Zach, how far along is Zayas at 154? They're really, you know what? It's okay. My God, is he like 21 yet? Is he even 21? Xander Zayas is so young. So I'm okay. I'm okay with them taking their time with Xander. I think there's nothing wrong with letting him get better. Yeah, I don't know how old he is. He was born in 2002. So he's 21. He'll be 22 in September. So he looked good in his last fight. He's not fighting name people yet, but that's another person that you throw in the mix at 154 at some point. But I feel like he's going to outgrow that division quickly. Thank you. We agree. All day, all night. I mean, you that fight, and it won't get made. See, man, this is Matias left PBC. He's with Matchroom now, so that fight won't get made. And that might be stylistically, it could be the best fight to make in the sport. Maybe in the sport, period, because these guys only know one way to fight. So something always has to give. When there's this kind of fight, something has to give. Either someone gets knocked out or someone turns into a boxer and they use a different style because what they're using isn't working. So please make that fight. Please make that fight. Big Supreme. Look at Shakur Stevens' resume. Who did he actually fight? He won 2 vacant titles. It's happened a lot. None of these guys have, well, Shakur doesn't have that staple fight, that fight that people will say they'll remember forever. 2 vacant titles, which let's face it, Supreme, there's a lot of vacant titles in boxing now. With 4 belts out there, there's always a vacant title. It's a shame that the best don't fight the best more often. But yeah, when you start to look at resumes, you can definitely start to pick things apart. You can definitely do that. And people looking at Shakur's 2 vacant titles, there's something to be said there. Honestly, that Amazon card was exponentially better than expected. It was. Who cares what I think about it being a pay-per-view? Because if people pay for it, then it was a worthy pay-per-view. The fights kept moving. They were entertaining, and they kept moving. And I think 11 o'clock, that main event was in the ring. Might have been before 11. That resume talk is always suspect. But it's the truth, though, because what else do we have to go on? A guy can show all this promise, but you have to do it in the ring, right? And you have to see the people they fought. And I'm not saying to make every judgment off a resume. I'm not saying that, because if you do that, go back to in history when Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman. If you want to look, if you're just looking at resume, so I hear what you're saying. If you're just looking at resume, you're going to say, okay, Ali at that point had fought Joe Frazier twice. He lost to him once, got dropped, and he won a rematch. He fought Kenny Norton twice. He lost to him once and won a rematch. Barely won a rematch. George Foreman, I mean, he beat Joe Frazier and Kenny Norton like they didn't even belong in the same ring with him. So when they fought, you'd say, well, look at who they fought. Part of it is common opponents. Look what Foreman did to the guys that gave Ali hell, and then Ali wins. So I hear you. You can always pick. The thing is, you can pick apart everyone's resume. I guess as I should say about Tank, I think that his promoters could have made better fights for him against better opposition, and they chose not to. But remember that boxing is a business, and the purpose of a business is to make money. That's what it is. All right, I got better beef in that fight. I got Arthur all day. I do. And I know he's 39. He might be 40. He might be 40 by the time and people are arguing in the chat against Canelo. Canelo has been 15 hydration clauses. Yeah. Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah. Catch weights. I hate. Listen, Floyd did catch weights too. Floyd pulled a dirty one on Marquez when they fought with catch weights. So yeah, this whole rehydration stuff and I don't know, man. I guess I'm more old school. The resume talk is very interesting criticism, Tank. Yeah, it is. But again, you can rip into everybody. You really can. I think Ali's style led to those knockdowns being caught off balance, weight on the wrong foot, and perfect timing. Well, but my point was Frazier beat him in that first fight, regardless of the knockdown, and Norton beat him in that first fight, and there were no knockdowns. So, Big Supreme, Hayes Chin, fine. He's never been on the canvas. Yeah, so, and Jorge Linares can punch. So, if you get shook by Jorge Linares and you didn't get knocked out or go down, you passed the test, in my eyes, because that's the one thing that he could always do, no matter what. That guy could bang. So, and fine. See that this could start a whole other Ducknello. Yeah, I'm a Canelo fan. I think Canelo has no interest in fighting Benavidez. So, and I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, because I think as a champion, you're supposed to fight the best fighters or else give up the belts. Give up the belts, Canelo. Give them up. But he won't, because I'm telling you, he's going to be a WBC champ when he passes. He's still going to have a belt in one of the weight classes. WBC still wants to get those sanctioning fees from him. Canelo asking for a Bivol rematch today and wants it soon. Really? Hope Benavidez gets the Bivol first and hopefully wins, put even more pressure. Did he really? Well, he was saying he wanted a rematch before. Well, I mean, I think let's see if Archer wins that fight, if he's calling for an Archer fight, because he's not a light heavyweight. I give him credit for going up. He didn't belong there. And by the way, 115, 113 in that Bivol fight is criminal. I'm watching that fight and I'm watching Bivol dominate round after round after round. And I'm thinking the whole time, boxing's going to rob him. They're going to rob him. And I think the way they announced the card, I think they were all 115, 113. I think. And when the ring announcer announced it, I believe he said, the judges are in agreement, 115, 113. I heard how close it was. I said, damn, they're going to rob Bivol. They got it right. The scores were wrong, but they got it right. So I love Canelo. Quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck. Yeah, the whole duck thing. Canelo loses again. I will put so much money on that. Of course. I don't think he'll fight Bivol again. I don't think he'll fight at 175. Why should he fight at 175? So yeah, Jay, I missed you, man. You're getting a lot in here, man. Canelo couldn't push Bivol back, and it got to a point Canelo stopped engaging, so he wouldn't be stopped, knocked down. Bivol is a much bigger fighter, and he's a better fighter. Bivol sees another guy that got just killed with inactivity. I was at HBO when they were riding him. They thought he was going to be a superstar, and it never happened. And Bivol, he left HBO and he kind of disappeared, but he still had a title. And for a lot of people, he didn't resurface until he fought Canelo. And people forget how good you are when you're not being pushed by a network or someone. So I think a lot of people they were on the Canelo hype train, and they thought Canelo was just going to go to every weight class and destroy people. And he didn't. And then people suddenly remembered, oh, yeah, Bivol is a really good fighter. So I was trying to the whole way I should end this show, the way I started it, and we're talking about storytelling, and oh man, I'm trying to see if I can play a show, not a show. I can't find it. Well, we're talking about storytelling and the need for storytelling. Why I think it's there it is. Why I think it's a necessity in boxing. Now, I don't know if this is going to work, but we're talking about storytelling, and I think it's a necessity. I think that some do it good today. I loved All Access. I used to produce 24/7's. Blood, Sweat, and Tears on ESPN is underrated on a fraction of the budget that All Access gets. The quality of shows is unmatched, but I think that they should do it more. So we're talking about storytelling. So I want to see if I can get this on screen. Share screen. Select window. Screen one. Nope. Yeah, this is harder than I thought it would be. Allow. Yeah, all right, let's see. As people are dropping off, because nothing is happening here. I should have been more prepared for this. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. So, that is a picture of my wife. I didn't mean for that to be up there. Will this play? It looks like I have the wrong screen up there, but everyone, that is a picture of my wife. So let's see if I could try this one more time. I am share screen. Screen 2. There we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to end the show with this, but tech down there. I've been at work this whole time with my team meeting on mute. Nice looking couple. Congrats. Well, we've been married for over 10 years, so I appreciate that. So we're talking about storytelling, and I love storytelling. People don't know I'm a storyteller. I'm a producer. I was at HBO 15 years. It's my passion, what I love to do. Love to talk about the sport. So I was lucky enough to produce some of the 24/7s, and they were among the best shows ever done, bar none. And on my YouTube channel, which make sure you like, subscribe, but on my YouTube channel, the first thing you will see is I did a 24/7 tease open of what it would be like if HBO 24/7 were doing a show on the Liston Cassius Clay fight, 1964, I believe. Sonny Liston defended his heavyweight title against Cassius Clay. He was Cassius Clay then. So this is what it would have been had Sonny Liston fought Cassius Clay with 24/7 around. Now, if I can get it to play, add the stage. Let me take this out. And without further ado, and then we'll end this, but this is my version of what it would be like for Liston and Clay to be on HBO's 24/7.
Over 2,000 miles apart are two men who could not be more different. One is full of bashful youth and speed, who has never met a camera he didn't like.
The world comes to be pretty like me. People think I'm talking. People think I'm just a lot of mouth. This will be the biggest upset in the century of all boxing.
The other, perhaps the most powerful figure in the sport, who does his talking in the ring.
Hard hitter.
In Denver, Colorado, the most fearsome fighter of his generation readies himself for what would be the greatest victory of his career. For Sonny Liston, the routine is familiar, and the odds are in his favor, for the man many say is the best heavyweight since Joe Louis. In Miami, Florida, lurks an unbeaten heavyweight contender in uncharted.
Get him, Cassius.
That of being an underdog.
Liston's too powerful. I might want the second round.
Liston will kill him. Kill him in the first round. What is Liston? I'm young, I'm handsome, I'm fair, I'm pretty, and can't possibly be beat.
Boxing's most bombastic character, Cassius Clay, is out to prove he's more than just the mouth that roars.
I am the greatest.
You can look at me, I'm loaded with confidence. I can't beat you.
Ripping punches by Cassius Clay, and it's all over.
I had 180 ounces fight, 22% fight.
Pretty as a girl.
Now, as one of boxing's most anticipated matchups in years approaches, two men seek their greatest victory. Only one will find it.
And as the people left the fight, you could hear them say, "This kid is a legend." That Cassius Clay.
Well, do you think it'll end in two? Well, you can bet your life it ain't going to.
4 weeks, 2 camps, all access.
Champion from the king. King of the champ. Born champ from the crib.
This is an unprecedented, unfiltered look at the lives of two fighters as they prepare for a historic showdown. This is Liston Clay, 24/7.
There's that music. Ah, man, every time I hear that music. So we'll end it on that. That was just storytelling. I produced that, I edited it, I voiced it. So yeah, storytelling is something that I love. So that, to me, imagine how good a 24/7 would have been back in the day with Ali, back when he was fighting, and Sonny Liston. And so anyway, that's my time, man. It's been an hour 55. And again, I wasn't even going to do this, but props to DAZN and the 40-day show, which I did not like, but it caused me to be on here for 2 hours today, unscripted, unfiltered. That's not bad for someone who was told they were a civilian on the air. So not bad, not bad. But listen, make sure you like the show, subscribe to the show. I think I'm close to 7,000 subscribers. So, and I don't pay for subscribers, but 7,000 for me, the little guy, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So, again, make sure you Stacks. It's only good when people are involved. That's what makes it good. Nice talking with you. Thanks for hanging out, George. We love you, man. Love you guys too. This is awesome. I don't know if I'm going to do a live tomorrow. Maybe Saturday. Maybe after the fights. All right, brother. We'll talk soon, but maybe after the fights, because a lot of people do shows, and I don't want to step on people's toes. And you need to be inspired about what you're going to talk about, because I respect these people, the people doing these shows every day, because they have to come up with things to say and talking points, and it's not easy. You know, Drew Titan and the Boxing Voice and all these other people, they have to come up with things to talk about, but it makes it easier when you have interaction and you have people talking boxing. It makes it a whole lot easier than doing it by yourself. And I usually drop a link in, but this one was a personal one because we were talking about HBO and 24/7 and storytelling. Stacks 14, will you be at the Hall of Fame in June? It is my plan to be there. So that is definitely my plan. That is definitely my plan. That is definitely my plan to be there. So subscribe. Look, I don't even want to stop. I don't. It's just so. I can talk boxing all day, but I will stop. It's almost 4 o'clock, and I did this early. Usually, I do it at night, and you know, my wife, daughter, they're like, "What are you doing?" I just subbed to Boxing Voice today. If y'all are content creators, give me the channel, and I will follow. Yeah. There are a lot out there that are not so good, but there are a lot out there that are fantastic. So it's a new day, new era. So again, make sure you subscribe. 7,000. It's coming. I think I had like 6,960 something subscribers. So I don't know how to get subscribers. I don't know how to get people to watch. But right now, like to me, there's a lot of people watching. There's people interacting. So it gives me something to talk about. So I don't know. Maybe I'll start doing a live every day, but I feel like I'll bore people. So it's always good to have things to talk about. So make sure you go to Real Devin Haney TV on YouTube and check out the series that they have for the Garcia fight. Far better than what DAZN is doing. DAZN learned something from Devin Haney, but I'm 2 episodes in. There's 4 so far, so I'm going to check that out. So everyone, make sure you subscribe, and let's talk more boxing soon.